Lots of issues at the moment for Newcastle on the pitch, in particular with the midfield. A lot of talent in that midfield three, but insufficient clickage so far this season. So what can Eddie Howe do to resolve this? So, a bit of troubling times then for Newcastle. Welcome along once again to Newcastle Fans TV. Please do feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, give yourself a high five. But yes, thank you very much for once again tuning in. Now, what can Eddie Howe do to really resolve this midfield quandary? It is a bit concerning. We all know full well that the goal this year was to get back into Europe. At the moment, does that look like happening? Maybe not, but time is on our side, plus a crucial January transfer window. Sympathy for Eddie Howe in that he hasn't been backed in the previous two windows. However, the talent on the pitch still should be good enough to, especially to have beaten the likes of Everton. Brighton, we should have won it, and Chelsea as well. It's one of them games where we could have got something from it, despite being second best for large parts of the game. It's a frustrating time, probably the most frustrating time since the takeover, footballing wise, because we know the talent is there. It's just not clicking, and it's very, very odd. I mean, there's problems all over the pitch with the defence, where it's really apparent now that we're missing Sven Botman. Isak's out of form. He will get back into form eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later. But you know, he'll be disappointed with some of the chances he's spurned over the past few weeks. He will get there. We know his quality. There's no doubt about it. But the one that's been taking most of the headlines at the moment is the midfield three. At the moment, look, we all know how we line up at the moment. With Bruno is the kind of sixes, if you like. That's what people seem to refer to it as at the moment. More of a defensive midfielder, and then Tonali on the right, and Joe Linton on the left of that centralised midfield three. Cast your minds back to the season we finished fourth, which, you know, not so many injuries. The back four was very settled, and that was with Dan Burn as left back and St Maximin. Remember him? On that attacking left. When frustration boiled over with Maxi and he was dropped to the bench, Joe Linton would occupy that space, and Willock would have the left-hand side of the midfield three. It was very fluid, however. Both would interchange, so we'd still have that beef in midfield from Joe Linton, and we'd still have that lung-bursting energy on the wing from Willock. It was really interchangeable, it was effective, and it worked. Obviously, the dynamic has changed a little bit now. The midfield three has improved since then, but like we saw last season, Sean Longstaff was brought back in to restore a bit of balance in that three. I don't think Howe would want to do that again, because then he's really admitting that he just can't play those three together. One thing that I've mentioned before countless times on the channel, I don't know why we've not even tried to play Tonali as a six. Now, having watched him since he was at Brescia, and regular viewers of the channel will know I've been banging on about, like Isak, about Tonali for years and years. Yes, he is much more than just a six. Milan. Let's just take a look at how he played for Milan. Milan lined up whilst he was there in a 4-2-3-1. He'd play alongside the likes of Kessie, who now plies his trade in Saudi. Amongst others, it wasn't just them pair, but he would be alongside another kind of defensive-minded midfielder. To allow him to, I mean, it used to be described as like a cross between Gattuso and Pirlo. We haven't seen anywhere near that from Tonali yet. Yes, he's been good. Yes, people are getting really frustrated when he's taken off after 60, 65 minutes. But again, if you cast your minds back to when Bruno first signed, Bruno occupied the right-hand side of the midfield, got loads of goals from midfield, is more threatening than Tonali when it comes to actually goal scoring. Tonali can be creative, does have the energy to be a box-to-box, but obviously has the talent to play that number 6 role as well. I don't know why this hasn't been tried yet, and it is frustrating me somewhat. We don't play with a natural 6, which to me, all the more reason to try Tonali there, because he is so much more than a 6, but is capable. And very much so, but we haven't seen the best of him. Yes, of course, his ban hasn't helped matters. But Eddie Howe, in his presser today, was talking about dynamics and building relationships. Yeah, I get it. Match practice is everything. But Tonali's been at the club for well over a year now, and has still been training with the squad for pretty much all of that. I don't think he was necessarily injured at all during his suspension. So it's not as if they're strangers. But yes, I fully understand the counter argument there that, nothing's like match practice and putting it into competitive action. But that's one of the options that you could use. The other one is rumblings now that are getting stronger, and that's switching to a 4-2-3-1, like what Milan played when Tonali was there, and playing Bruno alongside him. Yes, as you can see from my graphics there, we all know the situation with a right winger. And that's another thought, actually. You cast your minds back to that season we finished 4th. Murphy and Miggy were extraordinary. Miggy had that hot spell before Christmas, didn't he, of scoring tremendous goals. And then Murphy in the kind of spring, putting in some fantastic performances against the likes of Spurs. We all remember that game very, very well, and his cheeky face with that amazing finish in that remarkable game against Tottenham. But we're getting nothing. Absolutely nothing. And can that be the difference between European qualification and not getting European qualification? Yeah, it absolutely can. So to boot that with the defensive frailties and this midfield kind of trying to get the algorithm right for it all to switch up and make sense, switching to a 4-2-3-1 also means you then need a 10 or a kind of more advanced midfielder. Could you put maybe Gordon in the 10 to give him a bit of a free role? He can drift to wherever he wants. We know his strongest position now is very much on the left. Could you put Barnes there as a 10? Could you even put Joe Linton or Willock there as a 10? I'm not so sure. Could you, if you deploy Gordon as the 10, that would allow Barnes to come in on the left, or Joe Linton. It's a possibility. Barnes, again, is very in and out, especially when he starts games. There's not a lot there. He's done well and won us points. Most of our points so far this season, it has to be said. And again, not one to write off. I'm not criticising him, but has shown most of his best form off the bench. I think it would be fair to say. It's a tricky one because he can't play on the right. It was tried against Fulham, and it was terrible. He cannot play on the right hand side. Gordon, you lose so much when you switch him to the right. So yeah, it's tricky. We need a right winger. We all know this. It's nothing big. Mbeumo seems to be the choice of fans. Absolutely fine by me, but he's not been linked properly. There's no actual concrete rumblings, nor has there ever been any concrete rumblings that we are even interested in Bryan Mbeumo. Fantastic as he is. Yes, we all know about Kubo and my feelings on how he should be the man for us on the right wing going forward. But it is the most frustrating position out there. But on the midfield, it's a tricky one. Going back to Sean Longstaff, as much as I love Sean, I never want to make him a scapegoat, and I know he's unpopular with certain elements of the fan base, whatever, I don't buy it. But I think now going back to that would signify a bit of... it would signify that Eddie Howe's at a bit of a loss with that midfield. I think sticking with Tonali has to go forward. We've not seen the best of him, as I said, but he's a world-class operator. He really is. So something has to be done. Do we have the time and patience? for these midfield three to arguably gel, because on paper, it's one of the strongest midfields, not just in the Premier League, but in the whole of Europe. It really is. And then you have options on the bench with Willock, and then we haven't even mentioned Lewis Miley yet. So it's so tricky. I mean, by all means, get your comments in and let us know your thoughts on the situation. Tricky game again, but we're at home to Chelsea in the Cup tomorrow. Huge game. We want this Cup run. And bear in mind, if we don't qualify for Europe via the league, this Cup run could be absolutely huge for us and vitally important. Because we'd all prefer a cup win as opposed to a top four. I say all, the majority. But yeah, it's a big situation at the moment, because as well, Darren Eales is in the process of finding his successor due to his poor health. We continue to wish him well and give him love and support. But yeah, there's a lot of loose ends at the moment at Newcastle, which haven't been tied up yet. And it's a huge couple of months in preparation for the transfer window off the pitch. We're in a mightily difficult run at the moment on the pitch. Arsenal at the weekend in the league, followed by Forest at home, who are going great guns. And that's at the City ground, so that's going to be a very tricky place to go. We've done well there in the past, got the League Cup win there on penalties earlier in the season, but then you then at West Ham at home and you think, man, that could be no win in 8, and this could be must win for Howe, because yes, he hasn't been supported in the transfer window, but it always comes back to the same thing in football, and the fall guy will always be the manager. And despite Howe not being backed in the last 2 transfer windows because of stupid PSR rules and this, that and the other, and failing to agree terms for the likes of Gehi, Elise turning us down for Bayern Munich, not going in for another right winger, I think was stupid. Although we did actually, didn't we, with Elanga, which no thank you. I'd find that very underwhelming and disappointing. Particularly when, Mbeumo is there, like many fans do want. And I think Kubo would cost a similar amount to what Elanga would anyway, when trading between Premier League clubs. Yeah, it's just a real shitty situation. It really is. Let's not lie about it. But look, what would you do with the midfield? Would you switch it up? Would you deploy Tonali in the middle? I think that's where I would start, because let's face it, the team is still creating chances. Our XG, I'm not one to get bogged down by stats normally, but I found it very interesting that our XG against Chelsea was actually higher than theirs. So chances are being created. There is a problem up front. We all know the situation with Callum Wilson, with who I feel most sorry for out of all of this. It's Callum Wilson. Do you think he wants to be injured for this long? No. He wants to be on the pitch chasing down these goal records and, putting himself back into contention with England with a new manager that's just come in. He wants to be on the pitch. I feel sorry for him, but it's a crap situation, and it's something we should have addressed as well in previous transfer windows. But it is what it is. This is where we're up to now. It's a transitional season in many ways, not least off the pitch, with Paul Mitchell replacing Ashworth, Amanda and Murdad leaving, and Darren Eales now on the way out. Yeah, it's a huge huge transition. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Fingers crossed for a positive result tomorrow night at Chelsea. There's a Greenwood and Mulliner show coming up on Thursday with comedian Ian Stone, who's an Arsenal fan, so we'll be looking ahead to this weekend's game with him. Very funny guy indeed. Absolutely legend of the stand-up circuit as well, between his peers. So yeah, plenty more to look forward to. So stay tuned to NFTV.